The disclaimer for the Pick a Topic with Sam and Guest show. The opinions aired on this chat show are not necessarily the views of the presenter. The information on this chat show is not intended or implied to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. All content, including text, graphics, images, and information contained on or available through this chat show are for general information purposes only. This chat show makes no representation and assumes no responsibility for the accuracy of information on or available through this chat show, and such information is subject to change without notice. You are encouraged to confirm any information obtained from or through this chat show with other sources and review all information regarding any medical condition or treatment with your physician. Some brilliant guests tonight.
The reason why we are on lockdown has nothing to do with the fact of building our immune system.
Try something else for a bit, then stop. So they've been using us all as guinea pigs.
What I will do differently now is that I won't feel like I haven't got a voice because I'm not Black.
Everybody's going to be dead at the same time.
I have never spoken about Black on Black because it's a nonsense, because most crimes are committed by non-Blacks.
Let that child go to school and come back with anything and see me.
Well, good evening and welcome to Pick a Topic with Sam and Guest show. It's series 2. My apologies about the technical hitches that we're having. We're using a different platform, so please bear with us. Now, this series is all about relationships, and we have our lovely Nigel Beckles, who is our relationship expert specialist tonight, and for the next 4 weeks. I'm not going to say too much about Nigel just now because I am going to ask him to come on right this minute. And I'm sure if I ask him, he's going to tell me and you a little bit more about himself. Hello, Nigel. How are you today?
Good evening. I am well, thank you.
Brilliant. Nigel, well, we are going to be talking about a topic that it tantalizes my brain because it's so different for everybody, it appears, and you're an expert in it. So how and why did you get into this kind of thing?
Well, people have always gravitated towards me for advice regarding relationships. That's the first thing. I've made my fair share of relationship mistakes myself, as I'm sure most of us can attest to. So it was really just trying to discover for myself, what mistakes had I made and why had I made them, etc. So it really started on that particular note in terms of me deciding to write a book. So the book took me 5 years of research because relationships are a very complicated subject, and really you have to ask yourself, well, how far down the rabbit hole do you want to go?
Absolutely. Okay. Just to quickly touch on because you've got a new book coming out, haven't you?
Yeah. Well, my first book was published in 2015. That's called How to Avoid Making the Big Relationship Mistakes. Then the book due for publication next year is How to Avoid Abusive Relationships, A Guide to Toxic Personalities.
Okay, brilliant. Okay, so can I just, we're going to be talking about red flags today. And I guess my question is how do you know they're actually red flags? And what would be a typical red flag?
Well, there are various red flags in terms of dating, and obviously when you are in a relationship. But in terms of dating, some are subtle, some are very obvious. I think the biggest red flag people tend to ignore is their intuition. So, you know, at the end of the day, you have to ask yourself, well, is this behavior normal? Is it acceptable? So, for example, you know, if someone doesn't get their own way and they start giving you the silent treatment, well, I would consider that a red flag. Temper tantrums, that's a red flag.
Okay.
Sulking if they don't get their own way. You know, so there are a variety.
But is that, I mean, is that a red flag, or is that someone just being emotional?
Well, it depends, doesn't it? Because at the end of the day, everyone has various personality traits. So, okay, you might say to yourself, well, someone giving you the silent treatment when they don't get their own way, you may say, well, that's a minor red flag. But if there are a combination of what you may consider little red flags, they add up to big red flags.
Of course. Of course. Okay, well, Nigel, you know, we do have some guests with us today. And I'm going to start to introduce them because I'm sure they've got a lot of questions they want to ask you. And we are on YouTube Live. I'm not sure if we've managed to get to Facebook Live yet or at all. But if we do, we're going to be having comments and questions from them as well as YouTube. And we've even got a call-in service so that people can be anonymous. So I'm going to introduce the first person to you. Have we got Julie Payne there? Let's have a look. So we've got Julie Payne, and it seems like her Wi-Fi might be just working a little bit slow at the moment. So I'm going to introduce the next person, which is Esmond Buchanan. Hey, Esmond,
Hi.
how are you?
I'm great. I'm great. I'm good.
Brilliant. And the next person we have also here today is Lewis Mastermind. How you doing,
Good evening,
Lewis?
everybody.
Great stuff. And we should also have Lindsay Wesker with us.
Hi, Samantha.
Hey, great stuff. Let's see. Can we get Julie back on? And in the meantime, while we're trying to get Julie back on, guys, I've got quite a few guys here tonight, but you've got two powerful women here, myself and Julie. So what I need to ask you is to ask Nigel about red flags, or maybe tell him some of them that you think you've come across, maybe. And I'm going to start off with you, Esmond.
Throw me in there. Yeah, where do I start? Red flags. Yeah, come in many forms. For me, they're more behavioral and attitudes. I don't know if I wanted to ask Nigel regards red flags because I have my own understanding.
Okay. And what would you say? Give us an example of a red flag.
For a red flag for me would be somebody always creating a problem where I don't see a problem, always acting out. Okay.
All right. Lindsay, what's your take on red flags? And what would you, and give us an example of one as well. We're going to get this talk show running.
One of the common things that sort of just completely makes me, oh my God, what the hell have I got into? Is kind of overthinkers, really. I mean, some people are kind of natural overthinkers, and they just overthink. It's like sometimes a comment is just a comment. Sometimes a gesture is just a gesture. Sometimes people overthink, and obviously I'm a married guy, but I do have conversations with women, and if they're kind of talking to me, he said this, he said that, and what does it mean? And then he did that, and what does that mean? And I've been thinking that maybe it means that, and And in the back of my mind, I'm kind of thinking, oh my God, you know, you are going to cause nothing but problems for this guy you're about to date. So it's like, yeah, overthinkers, I think is a huge red flag.
Okay. All right. And last but not least here, Lewis.
Oh, lordy, lordy, lord. What can I say? Red flags. That's a bit like red rag to balls as well. But there's been a number of sort of examples of red flags that I've come across. But one of the key ones for me is things that what's on the tin is not what's in the tin.
Can I just interrupt you a minute, Lewis? I think
Yeah,
there's some interference on your line.
Is there?
Yeah, maybe you might have to plug the headphones out.
Okay, well, hold
that
on a
might be
second.
what the problem is. And in the meantime, we'll go to Julie, who's looking absolutely marvelous as always.
Typical bitch.
Hi, good evening, everyone.
Good evening, Julie.
So
Hi,
Julie,
good evening.
hi, darling.
Yes.
So what we were talking about was basically the red flags, and what would you say a red flag is, and you know, what's your take on it?
I think when you're in love and you're besotted, you don't see the red flags. You don't see them at all. And I think that the people around you see them. Yeah, your friends, your parents, even. I mean, if I go back to my teenage years and you know, my first boyfriend, if you like, I mean, I look back now and I'm like, he was a wrong one, but I loved him. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, I didn't see any red flags, and if there were red flags and you saw them, I didn't want to know. But then eventually you see the light, and then it kind of sets you up for future relationships. So hence why now in this 24-year relationship that I'm in, yeah, he's bound, chain and gag. He ain't yeah.
Okay. Well, listen, the thing is, right, is that, I mean, I don't know if we can look at it like this, Nigel, because you could say a red flag would be someone who turns up late all the time, but it might just be that they are just not good at timekeeping. However, if you know that that's a pet hate of yours, then does that become a red flag? If you see what I mean? Hello, we can't hear Nigel.
Oh,
there we go.
Yeah, well, the first thing to say about red flags is that they are totally subjective. So what one person considers a red flag may not necessarily be a red flag to somebody else. In terms of if someone's late all the time, well, that for me would indicate unreliability. Are they a reliable person? Because the worst thing you want to do is get yourself involved with someone who's not reliable. So if they're unreliable with their timekeeping, then you really want to start paying attention to see if they're unreliable in other areas.
Point taken, and a very good point indeed. Funny enough, I probably, I'm not sure if I would have looked at it that way when you've just got into a relationship and, you know, but you're quite quick on the take, aren't you? And yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. I mean, Nigel, I've just seen something from, I think it was the DJ or something like that. He says, red flag is when you take a woman out and she asks for tenants and whiskey.
Oh, he knows Julie then.
Well, possibly. And actually, going back to what Jules said, in terms of red flags, many people ignore the red flag because they're too busy falling in love. They're too busy getting swept off their feet.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think if I just interject there, I think what you do, you may see the red flags or see a little glint of them, but you make excuses. So with the timekeeping comment that you made there, Sam, you make excuses for them. Oh, it's because this. Oh, it's because that. And then it's not until something happens and then everything kind of falls into place, and then it's like, so that's why you was like, you know. So it's all part of the kind of the developing of the relationship. And whereas he used to look cute eating his spaghetti, you know, then a couple months down or a couple years down the line, let's be optimistic, you can't stand him, and it's just, look at that slob on the, you know, it's that kind of thing. But in the beginning, you make excuses for them.
Can I just talk about timekeeping?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I mean, for me, timekeeping is a sign of disrespect, basically. You know, if somebody is late or constantly late, they don't actually value you. They don't actually respect you. You know, if they're constantly late, they really, you know, you're not important to them. I mean, if we were to tell that same person that there was a suitcase waiting for them with $1 million in it, but they could only pick that suitcase up at 1 p.m., you know, what time would they be there? They would be on time to pick up the suitcase full of $1 million. So if somebody's, you know, people are on time for the things that matter to them and the people that matter to them.
I mean, just to follow up on that analogy, if I may, I always use the analogy of getting a plane to go to Trinidad or away on holiday. How many times are you late for a plane?
Oh, that's my favorite, my absolute favorite. That's the one I use.
That's my analogy. So if you're meeting someone and say, meet me at 8 o'clock, and they turn up at 8:30 and say, boy, well, no. That's
okay, well, look, Nigel, I've got one for you. Would you say that a red flag is a guy asks you out on a date, as a woman, that is, a guy asks you out on a date? Can we have Nigel? Can we have everyone on screen the same size, please, Theo? Yeah, say someone asks you out on a date and they say, are you prepared to go halves? Would you say that's a red flag or no?
Not necessarily, because at the end of the day, it depends on the culture. So when I was doing the research for my first book, I discovered that, well, in some cultures, it's quite normal to go Dutch, as we would say, or go halves. In other cultures, it's taken that the guy will always foot the bill, as it were, for the first, second, or third date. So it really just depends where you reside and what culture you are in.
Okay, well, I would say the westernized culture then. Would that be a red flag there or no?
Again, subjective. Because I know, just because you grow up in a culture isn't a catch-all in terms of, well, or an all size fits all. Some people might see it as not a nice thing. Some women may expect the guy to pay for it. Other women will offer up first and say, well, you know, we'll go halves on this as it's the first or second date. Or woman might say, well, if you pay for this date, then next date, then I'll pay.
No, I think it's cultural, Nigel. I totally agree. Yeah. You take out a lady of color, a Nubian queen or whatever, and you take them out to Nando's and you say to them, let's go half, they'll look at you and think, what's going on? They're expecting you're taking them out for a date. As a gentleman, you have to pay. But having said that, going out with Sharon or Jackie, right? All right, I'll pay if you want. Yeah. And then
but you don't take a date to Nando's.
Oh, Lindsay.
So Lindsay, is that a red flag then?
Well, I mean, a woman should definitely hold up a red flag. If a man takes you on a date to Nando's, yeah, you can hold up a red flag and go, oh my god, and that geezer he's a non-starter.
When Nando's was the thing, it was the place to be.
Yeah, but but then technically you could invite a woman out to a picnic in the park as a first date. The woman might feel that's really romantic. I've done that
Funny
before.
Enough, I agree. And I think even just walking down the road, eating ice cream for a first date is good enough.
One of my first... Sorry, go on, Sam.
That's all right. Just go on.
I was just going to ask Nigel, what does he make of one first date that I went on was to go for a sauna.
Oh, hello.
That sounds a bit exotic. But,
yeah, is that a whole nother show?
That's a bit fresh. That is a bit fresh.
Well be. But at the end of the day, it would depend
that must be a
on.
red flag, Jules, because why are you taking you to the sauna? What's he trying to say about you?
I don't know.
Did you
You tell
go?
me, as a man,
Did
you
you?
tell me, what was he suggesting?
Hmm.
But
Yeah,
Jules,
but
did you
but did
go?
you? Yeah, but did you feel comfortable with that? Did you go as Sam?
It threw me off my feet. It was totally random. I mean, who says that?
Yeah, but
I
did you
went
go?
though. Yeah.
Well, there you go.
He just wanted to leer at your body, Jules. That's why.
All right. And then the next question is did you enjoy the date?
There was nothing lewd about it.
Oh, okay.
It was a nice, it was like a nice spa place. And it was lovely. So a little bit strange, but I think we met at and Lewis was playing at the party. So yeah, the kind of people you invite, Lewis. But there you go. But anyway, but I think because we'd been in that environment, so we'd been up close and personal, we danced the night away and had a really good time. It just seemed that something that you might have not done until you were 5 or 6 dates in, it seemed all right. I guess a bit of a risk, but I was safe, told everybody where I was going and stuff, and it was great.
Hmm.
Well,
It stays in my head because it was the most unusual first date I've ever had.
Wow. Well done, Herb.
Can I just ask? I mean, we are. What time is Watershed? Can I just ask? Is that 8:30 or is it 8 o'clock?
9 o'clock.
9 o'clock.
Okay, so I'll be careful how I word this. Is it a red flag when you reach to the intimate stage? If that's not working, is that a red flag?
Well, that would depend on why it's not working. Inverted commas. Could be a variety. Or when you say not working,
Lewis looks hot.
Do you mean no chemistry?
Well,
or no sex or what?
Well, I mean, you've had intercourse. You see, because we're not after Watershed, we've got to be careful. So you're having intercourse, but it's not gone very well. Maybe the male has not done his part for you, but he's done the part for him.
Right. There's a
Look, he's rubbing his head now.
all I can think about, Richard Pryor on one of his comedies.
Yeah.
Did the thing about you meet a girl, you take her home, you do whatever, and then she's playing computer games. When you finish, you know you got a whole more things to do. So that's what I'm thinking of when you're talking about that. And to be honest, that kind of chemistry, if it doesn't work, men being men, we're very macho. We always like to think we're the Don Gorgon when it comes to the bedroom. But when a woman turns around and says, thanks, I'll see you next week, and don't see it again, the worry about that for men, there's a red flag because A, who's she going to tell?
Yep.
Right? She's going to go and tell a friend and a friend and a friend. 9 times out of 10, you're in a similar circle of the people that you meet. And then when you go out and then in the corner and you're standing there and then they're just waving at you and little side jokes. And so that's the kind of thing that sort of comes out of that kind of situation.
But I'd like to think, Lewis, that in a situation like that, presuming that we're talking about 2 consenting adults and everything, I'd like to think that there would be a little more understanding and sympathy, not sympathy because that makes it sound, but a bit more consideration, because that very first time, and like you say, the men are, they're kind of expected to perform and be matched and swinging from the chandelier and all that sort of thing. And it could be that the man is just as nervous, if not even more nervous than, this might be the real hottie of the dance and he's got her, but just the overwhelming excitement might mean that he comes too quick or something like that. But I'd like to think that the woman would show a little sensitivity, and I think I've heard it said by some comedians that you kind of have to get rid of bust your first nut. I think that's a man thing. Doesn't really mean anything to me. I'm guessing what it means, but you have to get rid of that first one, and then you can relax and discover each other properly. I think if anyone's gonna if any woman's gonna diss a man on the very, very first performance, let her go.
I think I
Okay,
don't
because
think
that's a red flag, isn't it, Jules?
Yeah.
I don't think that's necessarily a red flag. I think it's a deal breaker. It feels as though it's a deal breaker. And
Do you mean ball breaker?
it feels as though it's a deal breaker, which is like a completely that's another show. I mean, that's another show. What are the deal breakers?
Well,
Okay.
seems to me that you really got to separate that question out into two parts, because the first part would be, okay, obviously if you're indulging for the first time, it may not necessarily go like Mills and Boon, but obviously if you're interacting over a period of time and it's not working for one particular person, then obviously that's another issue, because an issue in relationships can be sexual compatibility or the lack thereof. And in terms of Lindsay and Lewis, I mean, we all come from quite extensive DJing backgrounds. So we've, so out in the field, as it were, in the DJ world, we see lots of different things going on. And I mean, for me, I know of a story where a guy, and to be fair, the woman was pursuing the guy for quite a long while. And when she secured him on that level for the first time, she wasn't impressed. And then she was running around telling her friends he was rubbish in bed.
That's a no-no.
And then and he was a guy that I actually knew as a friend. So I then had to make the decision to say, well, do I tell him people are talking about him in that type of way or not?
That's out of order. That's out of order, I think.
And I did tell him. You weren't happy, obviously, but I told him.
Wow, that's messy.
Yeah, that's out of order.
Messy. I mean, that comes back to the other question around, trying to build a relationship. When you meet somebody, what's your perception of that relationship from the get-go? Is it somebody, a quick thing, or is it someone you want to invest time with? If it's someone you want to invest time with, then you're going to find these nuances at the beginning that aren't working, but you work at it together.
Exactly.
You want to extend it.
Exactly.
Otherwise, it comes to a stage of it's just a passing thing. So the red flag is, from that point perspective, in my opinion, is okay, it may not work on the first encounter, but you talk about it, and then the woman says, well, look, I didn't really enjoy it, or you ask the question, how was it for you? And if she says, well, it wasn't that great, but we can do this or we can do that, that shows the extent of the relationship or how it's going to progress. That's just what I look at it.
Can I just quickly say, the DJ Supreme is saying, I've been with certain women and I couldn't come. Wow. Okay, well, then you probably wasn't too interested in them, maybe, or maybe it was that you had a lot on your brain, or you could have been stressed out. Nigel, what do you say? And then I think we're going to go to the commercial breaks after this. But before we do all of that, I'm just going to say you can also call in later on 07943 720 379 when we come back. So, Nigel, what would you say to that? Hello, A. Nasir. How you doing, darling?
Well, in terms of compatibility, it's simply that, isn't it? It's not because you may be sexually or physically attracted to somebody that the sexual side is gonna work out. I mean, hopefully it does, but it's not a given. It's not guaranteed. And if you, as Lewis said, if you can't come to some sort of compromise, then you're probably better off just shaking hands and saying thank you, but no thanks. Keep it moving.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much for that, Nigel. Thank you very much, Lewis and Lindsay and Julie. We are going to go to the commercial break. Before we do, Di Green Eyes is saying, Di Green Eyes is saying, why people got to chat though? The other people weren't in the relationship with them. So why are they talking their business like that? Di Green Eyes, seriously, I don't know. But I agree with you. It should be between you and that person. Even if you fall out, it should remain between you and that person. Just like a woman wouldn't expect men to go around saying, oh, I scored tonight. So yeah, let's go to our ad break and we'll see you back on the other side.
Just tell Di, keep it to herself. Don't turn on her, mate.
Have you experienced several failed relationships or been through a divorce? How can you avoid making the same mistakes again? How to avoid making the big relationship mistakes is out now. Now you can discover the dangerous myths about love. If your relationship expectations are realistic, why you could be falling in love for all the wrong reasons.
How to avoid making the big relationship mistakes. It's a book that could change your life.
Available from amazon.co.uk. Kindle version also available.
And we are back after the commercial break. So if anyone has questions that they would like to pose to Nigel, please, please, please feel free. You can just send it in via whatever way you're watching, whether it be YouTube, Facebook, or MediaNet.live. Or you can call in. Like I said, you can call in on 07943 720 379. And let's get Nigel in with us. Well, everybody, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. I want to ask on a more serious tip, Nigel, what are some very serious red flags to look out for that would, because sometimes people, we're not going to be touching on things like narcissists next week, but red flags could probably help you escape getting together with a narcissist, couldn't it? If you can spot them.
If you can spot them, yes.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, as we discussed before, red flags can be subjective. So, if someone, for example, has got controlling issues, they always want to know where you are, what you're doing, what time you're going to be here, what time you're going to be home, what time you're going to be, etc. Then for me, that would be a red flag, because many abusers are actually control freaks. So you have to look at really, there are typical red flags. Like I said before, if someone's always sulking because they can't get their own way, well, I would consider that a red flag. If they're trying to rush you into a relationship too quickly, instead of letting the relationship progress in a kind of organic way, well, I would consider that to be a red flag, because again, abusers often try and rush people into a relationship quickly.
Okay. All right. I just want to read out some very quick things I'm seeing on YouTube. So bear with me, please. I want to say hello to Thug Ninja 91. And he says, strictly for the ladies, G. He's okay. And hello, Beverly Brown. How you doing? Hi, Everine Henry. And Everine Henry is saying to Julie, if it was Kentish Town, then he was looking something. Yeah, meaning the sauna. All right. And whoever's got their other devices on, you need to turn it down because you're echoing. That's to you on the panel. Okay, please turn them off. So hello, Dorrit Brown. Just 1 second. Let's see. That is quite funny. What Everine just said. I did hear quite a few stories about Kentish Town sauna places. Anyway, and let me see. Eve Phillips is saying, got it, Beverly Brown. Thank you, Empress. I think she's just given her the link to the show. So welcome to you, Eve Phillips. If you've never seen Pick a Topic with Sam and Guest before, good evening to you. Oh, so to the person who said that he couldn't ejaculate, Everine Henry is saying he better hope it wasn't because he weren't attracted to her. Sometimes it's not the man's fault. Sorry, you said that a little bit wrong, Everine. It was a man, I think, that was saying it, or is that a woman? I'm not sure, but anyway, you got the drift. Sometimes the first time doesn't go well, maybe because self-confidence, fair even. Then when the ice breaks, sex could be quite nice later on. That woman was too thirsty. That's from Everine. And Beverly Brown is saying, we know narcissists are manipulative and will turn on the charm. So could you get drawn in before realizing? And I think I'm going to say yes to that. I think that's a possibility because, Nigel, are we not correct in saying that narcissists they can on the outside to other people, they can appear to be really, really nice, cool, chilled out people. And also, I want to say as well, this is a section where you can ask Nigel any question. Okay, so please feel free to ask Nigel any question. But yeah, Nigel, it is true that narcissists can sort of come across as really nice people, and unless you're the one with them, you would probably never know. Is that not correct?
That is correct, but that does not just apply to narcissists. That applies to a variety of abusive personalities who can be very charismatic, very charming at first, but that's all a ploy to entice the target in.
Right.
And then it's only after you're enticed into the situation that the mask begins to fall off and the abuse begins to occur.
Right. Okay, Lindsay, I want to hear from you.
I'm particularly interested in Nigel's new book. I mean, I know Nigel, you've done a lot of research in it, and abusive relationships really fascinate me. It's like, they probably intrigue a lot of people. It's like, this person is being abused, and in a wide variety of ways over a long period of time, and they just find the most elaborate ways to excuse the behavior of their partner. Whatever they do, he didn't really mean it, and I'm sure it's because he really loves me, and it's that's his way of showing me that he cares. I'm just interested in the research that you've uncovered. I mean, I don't want you to kind of spill the beans on your new book, but I'd be interested to know, some of the highlights of your research.
Well, part of what I've discovered, actually, I'm online a great deal. I have a support group on Facebook for victims and survivors. So that group's got 21,000 plus members. Wow. And that might sound like a lot of members, but I belong to groups that have got 40,000, 50,000, 60,000 members, because I belong to other support groups as well. So to your point, when someone's being abused, but they won't leave, people will look at them and say, oh, well, why don't you leave? This is silly. But what they don't understand is something called trauma bonding. So with trauma bonding, basically, it is created by what they call intermittent reinforcement, which is basically a London way of saying treat them mean to keep them keen. So it's a cycle of, nice behavior, nasty behavior. So the person ends up chasing that honeymoon period, if you like, of when the relationship was really nice and, the golden period, as it were. And it's also a biochemical, because when you're interacting with somebody on that level in a relationship, certain hormones are getting triggered. Like for a lady, it would be oxytocin, for example. So oxytocin is known as the cuddling hormone. Yeah, because that's what bonds a woman generally to her partner. Men have oxytocin too, but men have more testosterone. So basically, you get bonded in different ways to a person. So then you also become, on a hormonal level, you get attached to the abuser as well. So it's not just a question of just, oh, you leave, because I see stories every day where a person will be posting online saying, well, I really miss him, I really miss her, I know they treated me really badly, they abused me, but I still love them. So you look at it on a logical level and you say, well, that doesn't make sense, does it? Why would you love somebody who has abused you? But when you understand trauma bonding, then it makes perfect sense.
Fascinating. That's fascinating. No, go ahead,
Sorry.
Lewis.
No, I was going to say that the whole situation, that really winds me up. Okay. And women, and saying even men, when you're in an abusive relationship and you still remain in that relationship, I know it's hard, and I take your point, Nigel, but you've got to excommunicate yourself from it, because then people will just say, as my dad would say, typical Trini statement, you like it so, right? So that is the thing. And I've met lots of women and men as well who are in abusive relationships. And I'm trying to say to them, well, if you're being abused, you need to either resolve it or step away from the car. But they always want to stay in it. And what that then does, it manifests itself by bringing their friends, their family, everybody else in their world to help support the abusiveness they're receiving. So what you get to the stage of saying, well, I can't help you anymore, I'm trying to help you, and that relationship breaks down, and then they're left alone, and then you feel guilty. Then some months down the line, you find they've found the end of a road, battered to death or whatever. I'm not saying it's happened, but yeah, it has happened with one particular lady, really badly beaten. So it's hard. I mean, I know they say they find it hard to relate to get out of it, but surely there must be some way of, and again,
being an advocate for victims and survivors of domestic abuse, you're kind of venturing into the victim blaming territory, as we would call it, because at the end of the day, it's not easy to leave an abusive relationship, because an abuser has got a variety of tactics they will use to keep a person in that type of relationship. It's not just, when people talk about abusive relationships, they often jump to the conclusion, oh, it's domestic violence or it's physical abuse. There are different types of abuse. There's physical abuse, there's mental abuse, there's psychological abuse, there's emotional abuse. And basically with an abuser, their objective is power and control.
I was just about to ask you about that, Nigel.
I'm so sorry, I have to interject. And the reason is, Lindsay, please remember what you were saying. We have a caller online and they've been waiting online for a little while.
Okay.
So please don't forget what you're saying, Lindsay, please.
Okay.
Nigel, let's get this call going on. Let's see who's online. Who's online with us? Hello? Hello, caller. Okay, when we have got the caller online, we'll continue. But sorry, Lindsay, can you remember where you were?
Yeah, no, I was just going to ask Nigel. Nigel, in your experience, do you think there are some people who are in abusive relationships and they kind of don't even know it because it's so subtle? And there's kind of, a lot of passive aggressive behavior, and they kind of, as you say, the object of the exercise is to control someone. So do you think there are people who are in abusive relationships and they don't even know it? Very common
indeed, because abuse again can be very insidious, so at the end of the day, it's kind of like a combination of things. So say you've got an abuser's got their partner, they're controlling the finances, and they've also isolated that person from their support, because that's another thing that abusers often do. They will isolate the person from their friends and family, or ship them away, move them, persuade them, oh, let's move 200 miles away, 300 miles away. But then that person's got no support.
And
then
isolate them.
Yeah, isolate them. And then part of that power and control strategy is to break down someone's self-esteem and self-confidence.
That's right. Yep. Right. So we do have our caller online.
Yeah.
Hello, caller. Hello. What's your name, caller?
Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening. What's your name, caller?
All right. For today, my name is John.
Hello, John. Okay. Do you want to go ahead and
I
ask
want to
your
remain
question?
anonymous.
No, please, by all means. That's why
Right.
we've got the call
I
in.
want to
So,
ask the question, and it seems like Nigel's written the book, and he's done the research, and he sounds like a person who's quite into the relationship. Now, I got a phone call today, which I found very interesting, from a young lady who I was interested in. But I got pushed into this thing they call the friend zone, right?
oh dear.
But
Okay.
one thing I noticed, Nigel, through watching this lady and meeting her and whatever, she goes for a particular type of person, right? And she's been through quite a few relationships, and she's actually went and got married, and she actually rang me today to say she's got divorced, and it's not even been 6 months. And I said, well, why have you got divorced? Right. But I'm going to say this, and I hope people don't take it the wrong way. To me, she's attracted to Jamaicans, and Jamaicans are very good with the ear candy to me. And I'm trying my best to be, show myself how I am. But I find that a lot of guys like me, if we are not egotistic, giving the ear candy or being narcissistic, we don't get the woman. So there's this thing that I would like to talk about, this friend zone. So can you touch on that?
Well,
what is the
He's gone
actual
quiet,
question,
man.
John? John, what is the actual question? Because there was quite a few things in there, wasn't there, Nigel?
yeah. Well, I thought he was asking about the friend
all right.
zone.
I want to ask, from Nigel's point of view, how does a man not get into the friend zone?
Okay.
Well, it's not really the guy's choice, is it?
No.
It's the woman's choice at the end of the day. Because if she doesn't look at you in that type of light, or she doesn't think you're potential partnership material, then you're going to get friend zoned automatically. That's just part of life. Unfortunately, rejection is part of life. And of course, some people, men and women, have a certain type of person they go for. And in fact, when you look at the research will tell you there are men and women who are out there who are actually subconsciously attracted to the opposite sex parent of their own. So a woman might be subconsciously attracted to a man who reminds her of her father, and vice versa. But friend zone that's just part of the dating game, isn't it?
Well, I don't know, because I'm currently seeing myself as that maybe I should be a little bit more egotistic in the way I am, because I'm finding that, and when I mean egotistic, I find, and I'm just talking to other men, that we seem to be more like becoming like bodyguards instead of the material, like husband material. But I'm a person who I would say I might be from the old school where I say, well, I like to court a woman, show her where I'm coming from and where I'm going. But then I'm just saying, I see that now as I have to change my attitude, and I think that's not me.
I think it sounds like you're saying you're a nice guy, and women don't tend to appreciate nice guys. However, what I would say to that is that you maybe are attracting the wrong type of women. That's just my opinion on it. Because there's loads of women out there who wants the nice guy. They don't like the thug, so on and so forth. And Julie had her hand up. She wanted to say something. I'm sure Nigel's going to come back in. And Lewis, if you got anything to add, and Lindsay, please do.
I just wanted to ask John. Good evening, John.
Good evening, Julie.
Hi. I just wanted to say, when the young lady approached you after her to announce her divorce and whatever, was she inviting you to come out of the friend zone as a potential partner, or what? How was
Well,
she
it was a
coming
very
back at you?
interesting conversation because this conversation was today. And she actually said, I know you're upset with me. And I was like, I'm not upset with you, because she sees, you know, she knows that I'm so much interested in her, but she went in another direction. I had no problem with that, but it just seems like you've gone for a particular type of personality all the time, and it's always wrong. Yeah.
You know what, John? John, sorry to cut you. She doesn't deserve you. She doesn't deserve you. Yeah? She doesn't deserve you. You came, and you came with your real self. You weren't giving it the big un or walking around like, you know, you're the dog's balls or whatever. You were just you. And she went for the larger than life character, and turned out that he had no substance. And now she's come scratching back to you. Now, I guess, and they all live happily ever after. But me personally, she doesn't deserve you, because I think that is a red flag right there. If you've been listening to the rest of the show, yeah. And if she could do that, she might be, you know, because now she needs you to cuddle her and lick her wounds until pretty boy, loud boy, the one with all the attitude and the bowling around, until that one catches her eye, and then she'll be gone. And it's like, John will be all right.
John,
Listen, John.
Don't be a makeshift, right? Don't ever be a makeshift. You like the lady, it didn't work, jog on. You can be friendship with her, you can do whatever as far as friends are concerned. Relationship wise, value yourself.
But I don't know who I'm speaking to, but I'm gonna say that I didn't call her, she's now called me.
Yeah, I know, John. I get that, John. I get that. And she will continue, and she'll spin you, and she'll say to you how she might have made a mistake, and can we do this and do that. You just need to set it straight from the get-go. Say, look, I'll always be your friend, but
you're friend zoned.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah, exactly. Well done, Nigel.
Friend zone, friend zoner.
Yeah. Your queen is around the corner, John. Your real queen is around the corner.
Just
all right?
jog on, just jog on, John.
Okay, well, I'm hoping. I am sincerely hoping, John. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say that, right, when you look at men now and relationships now, and I'm over 50, yeah? You know, the dating game, it kind of changes. It's not like when you go in a club and lights are off and you can whisper all these things. Like now, it's totally changed. So another question, I'll come offline, is how do people who are single over 50 now start forming relationships? I'm going to come offline now, yeah? And look at you on Facebook.
Okay.
Okay.
Is that okay?
All
Is
right.
that okay?
Yeah. Nice one, John. Stay safe.
And by the way, before you go, John, Di Green Eyes is saying change your number and move from her.
Change my.
Yeah.
Well, I've now got the nickname Jog on John.
Well, it was lovely of you to call, and I hope that
anyway,
John, it was lovely of you to call. I hope you'll call again, and I hope you've had some advice that actually does help you today.
Yeah, I think it's sometimes advice is a thing that I have to sleep on and reflect on.
Okay.
You know, I would sit down and reflect on it, you know.
And I hope you reflect on the call that she gave you also.
Yeah, I am currently. That's why I'm watching the show.
Great stuff.
Okay.
Great stuff.
Okay.
That's a good one. Would it be the first book, Nigel, or the second book?
Oh, in terms of
for John, that maybe he could go and
probably both books. I mean, the first book, the first half of the book is about basically self-development, and then the second part of the book is about relationships. That's a 400-page book. Obviously, the second book's going to be about abusive relationships and toxic personalities. But going back to what Lewis said in terms of jogging on, basically, and I know we're going to talk about narcissists next week, but basically it's the same kind of thing, because with a narcissist, they tend to go through a relationship cycle. So it's idealize, devalue, discard, and then often you get the Hoover. Now, the Hoover basically means they're trying to suck you back in. And what John described to me immediately reminded me of the Hoover.
Yes.
Because basically she's gone off, John was interested in her. She went off, chose another option, got married. It didn't work out, and now she's coming back. She's trying to suck him back in to get attention or whatever from him. So yeah, so Lewis was right. You know, keep it moving.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
If he wasn't good enough for her then, now she's on her uppers, as it were, in the relationship game. You know, why should he entertain her? Like Lewis said, he's got to know his own worth.
Yeah, definitely.
Brilliant. And can I just quickly say as well, John, I hope you really are listening, because Everine Henry is saying, John, I need a nice guy. So who knows? Who knows? Who knows what could happen?
Nice one, Everine. Get in there, girl.
Yes, Jules. Can we unmute Jules, please?
Yeah. Okay. So, Nigel, the question that John left us with was, what do young men and women who are 50 years young and slightly a little bit more than that, how do they get into a relationship now? How do they forge a relationship? I mean, it seems that the trend is to shop online. Like, you know, you go online, and I guess with this whole lockdown thing, you know, maybe it wouldn't be such a bad thing to embrace that. But what would you say is, because it's a question that I get a lot of
I get it quite often, but at the end of the day, I mean, obviously since COVID, you know, the landscape has changed for dating as well as many other things. What I observe is that women who are, say, 50 plus, they are reluctant to get involved with online dating, which on a practical level doesn't really make any sense, because when you think about it, when you look at it, online dating is the biggest thing going. There are more over 50s from different races involved in online dating than anything else. It's convenient, it's practical. There are not say red flags, but there are things you need to pay attention to if you're going to set up your dating profile. Like, you don't put on your dating profile, oh, looking for love, easygoing, because one of the things about online dating is that's where the predators are lurking as well.
Oh,
yeah, they're looking. That's where narcissists, sociopaths, psychopaths operate.
Yeah.
Online,
looking for the lonely hearts.
Looking for the lonely hearts. So you have to be, you know, you have to be careful about what you're doing. But for me, online dating makes sense. I don't understand why there's a stigma attached to it by some, except for the fact that they may feel it makes them look desperate. But
I think I would say Lewis, in fact, I think all of you are DJs, but Lewis as one of the main DJs. Oh yeah, absolutely. So Lulu, I mean, if anything, you could say you were the Cilla Black of the dance halls, because you know what, that used to be the stomping ground for I'm talking, you know, parties and dances in general, but you know, what responsibility, if any, do the DJs take for forging relationships? I mean, or is that unreasonable? I mean, but no, hear me out, Nigel, hear me out, because you set the tone. You set the tone. You play this tune, you play this walk up tune, then you play this scrub up tune.
So,
I think you've got a lot to answer for.
That we have, and I put my hands up and say I'm guilty as hell. So I can give you one example, and if I may, Sam, just a quick example.
Oh, please, yeah.
So, talking of Carnival, we had a massive Nokia screen one year, right down by the stage, so people could see each other on the screens. It worked two ways for two people. A guy came with his wife. Every year they come by Mastermind for Carnival. Left his wife at the front and used to go to the back, and she kept saying to me, "Where's he gone?" And then she looked up and see him on the screen dancing up in the back with another girl. So that was one example of sadness. The other example is a guy met his girlfriend at Carnival, at by us, and they got married, and they came on stage and got engaged there and then. So responsibility is everything. And what you try and add when as a DJ, the responsibility is to entertain people, but it does become a place where people meet each other. And they connect. And what brings them together is the music and the fact that that's a connection to start them off on their journey moving forward. It will depend on what your interests are. I'm sure Lindsay very much into sort of his book writing and so on. And his wife, he's been with for 25 or so years, fantastic woman. I'm sure that their mutual interests really what generated the relationship to what they are now. And it builds on that.
Absolutely. But guys, can you believe this? Lewis, I am so sorry. Can you believe this? We are out of time. We're absolutely out of time. Yeah, it's gone just like that. We could be here for at least another 2 hours, I'm sure. But you know what? George Williams is so funny. He just put up there. He just put up there. One dance just won't do. One dance just won't do. Nice tune. Okay, but on that tip, I just want to quickly have Nigel probably have the last say. Poor Nigel, he's ready for bed.
Yes,
no, Nigel, do you want to wrap it up here, and then we're going to go to the end?
Because it's just been a great conversation. I would like to have heard a bit more from Lindsay, but maybe next time.
Yes, I'm sure. We are going to have Lindsay back on the 26th of November. So we will hopefully hear more from Lindsay at that point. Di Green, as is saying, extend it. But do you know, I have to try and stick to time. JJ Jax, bless you. No, they don't want it to end. So sorry, guys, but we do have to end. We've got another 2 hours spare time.
Go find some ironing to do.
Yes, Lewis.
Nigel's books. Can I get information on the books, Nigel, and I'll put it up on.
Thank you. That's kind of you. Yeah. Are we not friends on Facebook?
Yeah, we must be somewhere. I'm sure I might be one of yours. I'll be one of your battered groups. I always get battered, so I'll be there.
Guys, we're being booed by George Williams. He's like, boo, you should have stayed on longer. But anyway, right, so that's it. We have now, thank you very much, Nigel. Thank you very much, Lewis. Thank you, Jules. Thank you, Lindsay Wesker. Thank you to Esmond Buchanan. Maybe something happened to his Wi-Fi because he dropped out. Thank you to the caller, John, who was anonymous. It's been a great show once again. Great to be back. We'll see you next week. Topic is narcissist. And we'll have the expert Nigel Beckles with us all the way for the next 3 weeks. And I think that's the cue to say bye.
Take care.
Bye-bye. Take care.
Some brilliant guests tonight.
The reason why we are on lockdown has nothing to do with the fact of building our immune system.
Try something else for a bit, then stop. So they've been using us all as guinea pigs.
What I will do differently now is that I won't feel like I haven't got a voice because I'm not black.
Everybody's going to be dead at the same time.
I have never spoken about black on black because it's a nonsense, because most crimes are committed by non-blacks.
Let that child go to school and come back with anything and see me.